Hey everybody. All right, looks like we have a lean group today, which is fine. We can just start running through things. Before we do, I know we have Busola, you missed last week. We can kind of cover, at least for you, what you want to try to hit in terms of like a milestone for the next week. I think Jason and Takeshi were there last week already, so we captured theirs. But if you wanted to give us a quick update on where you are and what you're looking to accomplish before we jump into the presentation.
I've actually been working on building the app, just making changes, testing things. I've
Okay.
actually spoken also to three brokers. I have a friend who is a broker who introduced me to two other brokers. So I've spoken to them about the app I'm building and the business we're
Okay.
doing, and they're excited about it. Um, and they've said it's something they're happy to share with the people who come to them.
Okay.
Yes, but most of my time has been focused on making sure the functionality of what we're building is very, very good, so that
Okay.
there's no because it's a fintech company, the
Sure.
trust has to be there.
Yep.
We're just trying to make sure everything works.
Okay. Got
Yeah.
it. Um, cool. So yeah, I mean, between then, I guess now and the and next week, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Um, um, right in the next day or two, sorry, not actually a day or two, in the next day, 24 hours or so, I'm hoping to start making the AI financial coach portion of the app more robust because this is very crucial. So I want to make sure that's robust. And once that's done, then we're pretty much very close to starting user assist use UAT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you sum up like what that means? What would you want to be done by the following week?
By the following week, I want to make sure the AI coach, the AI financial coach, is done and is ready. Is ready. It makes sense.
Okay.
And it's useful. It's useful to the users as well. I
Okay.
also want to, again, I haven't hit 10 in a week or in 2 weeks. I haven't hit 10 conversations with brokers in a week or 2 weeks. So that's kind of a concern to me. So I want to make sure I do that.
Okay.
Um, have conversation with 10 brokers in 2 weeks.
Okay. Got it.
And I really just test the heck out of the app. Just test and test and test.
Okay.
And also recruit a team of people who will be doing the testing as well.
Got it. Okay. Cool. All right. We'll cover the milestones next week and then just kind of see where you guys are at. Um, I'll walk through kind of, yeah, I wanted to walk through at least the OpenClaw stuff and what I've been doing with the AI orchestrators. And I know some of you guys have been messing around with this too. So love to kind of get your thoughts as well. Because obviously it's a deep rabbit hole that I think a lot of people can fall into. But again, I at least for me, like I am only focused on tangible business outcomes, right? And that's the thing that matters most to me. I know that there's a bunch of people in these communities. I'm a part of a lot of these Facebook groups and Reddit forums, and when I'm asking for practical use cases, 90% of the time I'm getting stuff that's just like some kid building something that's cool, but they don't have an actual use case for it. And I think it's very easy to kind of just get lost in that mess of like, oh, we could build this, but then it's like, okay, great. What are you going to actually use it for? And then knowing too that what you build could easily break or hallucinate or not actually do it, or what there's a bunch of other caveats to it, right? So it's not like just treating it like a human and hiring them and then well, I guess maybe in a lot of cases it might be similar. But yeah, I think it's like there's just some learnings around that I would love to share too. So I'll jump into it. Feel free to like, it's a small group today. Just feel free to share anything that you want to share. I know Jason asked for this because we're gonna do this again, but like product hunt playbook. So we're gonna do we're doing a launch again because we're doing like an AI um, MCP server release of our Leader Pro platform. So like we're going to be launching something on Product Hunt, and we've done it successfully in the past where we've landed in the top, top three, I would say three times in the past. And so there is a playbook. We haven't done it in a year, but we've done it over the past 3 or 4 years, and usually it's like once every year we do one, and we actually can be pretty consistent. So I'll share with you guys what the playbook is for the Product Hunt launch, not next week, but the following week after that, as so that might be something that's going to be useful for you guys as to how to land in the top five. Um, cool. Any questions before I jump into it?
No, excited
All
for this one.
right, cool. All right, so yeah, I'm sharing with you guys how we use it at Leader Pro, right? So again, this is specific to us. There's obviously a shit ton of other ways to use it, but these are the things that we found to be most useful. What AI actually means for us and how we're using it is that we have a self-hosted, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, annoying question. Can you give me a sense with Leader Pro how many folks are using this? So is it just you, just use your CTO? Because I'm on that balance of how much is personalized to one versus how much is shareable for others.
Yeah, I would say like all of our department leaders are using it. And so we have like five people
Okay.
that are actively. Um, the reason that I mean, and then we have like our team is 12, right? And so then we have beyond the five, we have people that use AI generally speaking, but not in the same high level context of how we're using it now. Um, and the reason is because we're probably going to displace them with and we're gonna have like each department leader basically run an AI pod.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what we imagine we're gonna be at the end of the year. Right.
Oh, makes
So like
sense.
yeah. So and we haven't um sacrificed anything for that transition over to us leveraging um AI agents more so other than it's removed certain responsibilities from individuals in certain departments. And so like what we have most of them doing now, like the people that are more junior is more process documentation. So because that's pretty much essential for I think making sure that the agents don't hallucinate and making sure that they have a thorough understanding of how to do the task and also like do you need sub agents to handle other aspects of a larger task versus like
Mhm.
having one dedicated to the entire thing. So that's kind of how we think about it. Does that help?
Mhm. Yeah, it absolutely helps. Thanks.
And it's like, and I will say that we have been using it more so on certain departments, not fully in others, although we will get there in the future. So a few examples of that is like Um, it's heavy in our sale. It's a heavy in our marketing uh and our sales retention side, and then customer success side, or community manager side. We've used it for like kind of like a pseudo CFO, but like it hasn't. It's not going to replace our CFO just because there's a lot of things that go like it can help our CFO do a lot more rapid reporting and pull. And we're trying to help him get set up in a way where we can get uh usable intelligence, from a prompt, and getting that data to him in his fingertips. But there's just more from a high, like legal, like a lot of legal implications, accounting
Mhm.
implications that just like doesn't make a ton of sense for us to fully trust, an AI solution yet. But it will help us make financial decisions faster. Is kind of how we imagine it. So, and we don't imagine it's displaced our CFOs. It's going to be like a supplemental to it.
Mhm.
Um, but in like our sales and marketing efforts, like yeah, it can get rid of it's and we've already used AI to get rid of all of our junior front end developers. So like that's where it's also been very useful from when we were just using Claude and Codex. But now it's kind of like yeah, it's like 2.0, 3.0 version of it of how we're using it. Um, so think about yeah, so I guess I'm jumping into back into it, but like this is how we're using it today, which is like a self-hosted orchestration engine. So we have Jarvis, who's our key orchestrator, and then um, we have different departments that have different agents that they're working with to manage the process and workflows. Uh, we have a specialized team of autonomous agents. All of them outside of Jarvis is on an AWS VPS. Um, what that basically means is they're on a virtual workspace, so they are not needing to be on Wi-Fi to function. For people that aren't fully aware, um, Jarvis has direct programmatic access to our database and all the APIs, and then we'll disperse that as needed to the different agents, the access. But all of that he has on the hard drive of his primary CPU. Um, yeah, and all of this is like that I'm going to run through in terms of the tasks that they're operating is like 90% autonomous.
Mm.
So we're not reviewing it like it's now doing a lot of these tasks on its own. Now, I think a lot of companies or a lot of like founders still that I talk to are using it under these contexts, right? Which is like prompting ChatGPT or like Claude, or using like different AI tools, which to me is like, we use them. I use them too. I use Get Swarm for like clients. I use it for us too, on the seller side because um, it's something we can replicate. But and I'll talk to you guys about that in a second, like when to choose what. Um, but to like build out an agent without having a full understanding of process or like what's actually working to me is just like it's like setting yourself up for a very steep and expensive learning curve. And this is how I think about, like Get Swarm is a wrapper. Clay to me is now a wrapper. Like you can have Claude do a lot of these things that these other software or SaaS products with AI or AI, and baked into it that has like, and to me, like basically a wrapper is like anything with a UI or UX that's just kind of like it's making the user feel more comfortable in how they use it, but like you don't have control over like what LLM they're using. You don't have control over like how to specify the workflows a lot of the time. So it's kind of like a hit or miss. It's sometimes going to work well for you, sometimes it won't work well for you, depending upon what the use case is specifically, right? An example is Get Swarm works for I think very specific industries, and it works good for like those that are selling into an ICP or persona that doesn't typically get a shit ton of like personalization. For example, like one customer, like client that I'm working with or Portco is like selling into commercial real estate. Uh, um, Property managers, property owners, and then like it does a really good job of like finding triggers and then generating customized messaging using those triggers. But for us, like it still works. It's just a lower efficacy because we're targeting like enterprise security leaders, and
Mm.
that's just they're inundated and they're very easily like able to eyeball what seems to be like AI or redundant. And so, what we try to do at least is like take that awareness and like use the prompts to focus more on like purposefully making it seem dumber. And so, like, changing the grammatical to using lowercase. Don't make it sound so perfect. Make it more like human prone to errors kind of situations. Speaking a little bit more generally, but just like prompting and training it to be a little bit dumber, again, based on who the ICP is. And in those cases, it actually perform better when we've prompted to do that versus when it's like highly personalized, where it's like the trigger is like you just raised a series A, great, and then it's like speaking specifically to that. And I've seen so much of it, so that's part of it. So to me, like I think about it like a car, right? And we talk, and I think Jason, you asked me this too, which is like, why don't I use like, OpenClaw with OpenAI, as the combination. And just to me, from my personal taste, is like it might happen in the future where everybody's got to lease the whole thing, right? Where like you're gonna get whatever your the orchestration agent is going to be. You're going to have to use the same LLM that owns the orchestration agent, but I don't know if it will always be like that. Um, but at least I want to get a flavor of like, what performs well for what the circumstances are. And I think like different LLMs end up being good for different use cases. And it just takes some trial and error to figure that out. But also for a cost perspective, like certain LLMs are going to be cheaper than others, and some might sacrifice very little in terms of quality, but at like a fraction of the cost.
Mhm.
Um, right. So Kimmy gets like a lot of like praise for being one of those that's like a tenth of the cost of Claude, but like can perform fairly similarly. And I think it's only going to get more competitive. So that's what I think about when you're leasing it. That's like the wrappers. That's like using Claude. That's like using Codex, right? It's like you're relegated to a certain LLM. And so you have to pay for the costs of maintaining that specific engine because you can't swap it out. Versus like if you have uh, the if you own the vehicle or you own the body and you own the engine, you can swap swap and replace whatever you want at any given time based on cost, based on performance, whatever you want to do, you can it's more modular. And that to me is like the biggest difference in terms of when we set it up using OpenClaw. I also have I mentioned the other um, uh, one agent that we have set up using Hermes, so kind of comparing between the two. I'll say like Hermes is seems like less sexy, more direct in terms of my case. And it's
Mhm.
like, and it doesn't hallucinate as much, and it's not trying to be too much of a people pleaser, but like OpenClaw seems to at least like take a lot more of a lift or a lot more back and forth for me to get it to not hallucinate and to like, um, yeah, be as direct and forthcoming with the information as possible. Um, and again, I don't know why that is because I've told it many times to not, but it's just seems to be an ongoing.
Glad you're in there because on that prior one, the if you're locked up on the left side there, what I'm seeing, so there's a free tool called CC usage. There's
Hmm.
command line that will look
Yeah,
at your
yeah,
actual logs and estimate your enterprise costs. And I'm
yeah,
burning 20K in estimated cost per month, but really
yeah,
paying about 1,500.
yeah,
Um, that's not gonna once they go public, that's gonna go away. So yeah, if you're building your whole system on these, your
yeah,
costs are gonna jump 9, 10x
yeah,
without going the right side.
yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. So that's just something everybody kind of think of, and I think that's like what ultimately a lot of people like founders will burn out on is like that learning curve, and they use all these things, and it's like fuck, and like it gets expensive really quickly. So I think it's gonna be yeah, I think it's gonna be those that start understanding the trade-offs and you just I don't know, as people dive into it more, I think they'll start understanding and they'll learn it
Mhm.
more. Like again, I'm not the most technical person, but like I'm explaining it in the way that I wish somebody explained it to me so I understood it in the very beginning. And if we didn't have all these, credits like from being a startup that's funded, like it's a different story entirely, right? Like we probably at one point I probably would have quit because of the fact that like when I did an update on OpenClaw, it just broke every fucking thing and it frustrated the hell out of me. And I was like, I'm done. And but then I was like, I still have all these credits I could burn through. I'm gonna try it again, right? So it's like from that mindset it's different, but like if you're a founder that like is just spent 2 grand, on training your model and then it's like broken now, then you know it's gonna be a lot. Yeah, you get my point. It's just gonna be
Been
like
there in a couple scenarios. It sucks.
it sucks. Yeah, for sure. So, but again, something to take into mind, and that's the other part why the right side is important.
Mhm.
This is our agent roster, so this is kind of like how we've had it set up. Everybody's going to be different, right? You're going to have different things that you're going to want to use it for. But we have Bonnie that does the buyer outreach for its cold scaling. It's doing 25,000 cold emails a day. It mutates the HTML templates nightly based on conversion data from the previous week. Our conversion data takes about like 48 to 72 hours for it to matriculate and actually become accurate. So that's why we go off of the previous week's data. But basically, it's looking at the previous week, how different templates have performed, and it's optimizing against itself. So that's one of the things that we're doing. This is happening in real time. Um, Mary is our concierge. She deals with like our community of like active buyers or inactive buyers, but basically anybody that's created an account is connected to a Gmail account through SMTP, and so is able to send individualized, personalized messages through a Gmail inbox, um, and is connected to our database endpoints, so it can pull the triggers in real time, like well, in every 30-minute increments. It's getting updated trigger information around what that subset of users are doing, and then it's firing personalized messages based off of that. And then it's going through the inbox and it's flagging all responses and labeling them to then understand how to respond to those. And if it doesn't know how to respond through the FAQ wiki that it's continuously updating on its own, it funnels that up to Slack and then asks us for us to respond. And that's something that's paid off on its own because we've seen Mary's performance. And I'll show you guys later. Like I'll ask Jarvis, give me a report, and you guys can see how it's actually performed. Because it's for us it's a very like we can see the ROI of the time spent and like when we're not like this is literally like what we used to have a virtual assistant doing from the Philippines, like owning this just full-time job, right? Like responding to everybody. Uh, and this, yeah, so this is something I think is super useful. Sammy does seller engagement or is featured on is trying to get sellers to be in a position where they will buy. So our customer base um, is basically yeah getting them to get to exhaust their credits by getting them enough into their pipeline so that it can introduce a lure or discount to then get them to buy the next batch of credits. And so we provided those rules of like any seller that has 3 credits or less that has purchased a package within the past 60 days, feature them to get them down to 1 or 0 credits. When they're 1 or 0 credits, then go ahead and introduce a discount that is time sensitive. So depending upon when you're introducing that, based on that trigger, give them either a 48-hour limit or only until the end of the week for them to redeem that discounted price, depending upon which one's longer. And so the way that I'm describing it, even I think hopefully you guys are understanding, right? It's like there's rules that we're baking into it, right? And like that's the level of description that you have to provide. And I'll kind of jump to this one first before I go to Danny, but like we have it where Penny is like our process documenter. So like every time I introduce a new task, Penny's asking me anywhere from 5 to 10 questions to like generate the process workflow. And most of the times now I already go into it, or our department leader goes into it already knowing what is required for that process, but it'll help us identify any missing gaps. And that's like the initial pass. And then it bakes into standard operating procedures, a draft. And then we have Quinn, that is our process QA, who comes in and does another look over of it and then identifies also accessibility gaps, meaning does it require a certain API, credentials access, endpoint access in order for it to get to the full level of visibility that it needs to be successful. And that includes for us at least like all the way down to revenue. It has to go all the way down to the conversion metric that is related to generating revenue, right? And that's how we look at it. We don't just stop mid funnel. And I think that's also the thing that we've realized here is that getting it to get that full funnel attribution was a lot of work too, right? Like we had to set up the right kind of UTM parameters, understand how to introduce that in a way that it could track it on its own, having it build its own SQLite database for it to run its reporting on its own, as opposed to us having to run queries all the time. Again, all this shit I wouldn't have known a month ago or even how to explain it, but just that we run into these issues and then you start understanding, okay, this is what it needs in order for it to do it. It would be something that might be a little bit more intuitive for a developer to understand too, of like what to have put in front of it in the very beginning. But even with my CTO and even with the people that we have on the engineering team side, like we are also still learning as we go, is like what it actually can do by itself versus like what it needs access to. And sometimes it is pushing it a little bit more to be like, can you build your own database for this purpose, for this intent, right? To generate your own customized reporting. That's something I would have known to ask, but my CTO was like, yeah, why don't we have it build its own database? Okay, great. It's able to do that. Okay, cool. Um, and then it's,
Glad to
yeah,
hear you say you ran that issue. Last week, I had to frickin' build a little UTM builder internally that ties into post office. Same exact problem. I
yeah,
just didn't think that was necessary for the
yep,
reporting, but it was required.
yep, exactly. So all these little things, right? Um, and then we have Danny, who is our data scientist, runs queries against SQL or SQL database, and it builds us a visual dashboard so we can prompt it exactly what we want to see in real time. And we're still working with it to uh, what we would ideally like Danny to do is like funnel up to us like the biggest bottlenecks and or the biggest opportunities for us to grow revenue. We have an internal target of getting to like 1 million in monthly revenue. And so like that's our North Star, and everything that we're doing is trying to get us to that point. And so it's like we want every agent understand that that's what it is. And so when we're having a prioritized task or it's prioritizing any kind of workflow or asking for any kind of access, is thinking with that as the primary goal. Um, so that's what we're trying to get Danny to get to be a place of having it have enough access to our database, and we're like, I mean, we have hundreds of endpoints. I think we've given it like 50 or 60. So it's like giving it enough access to our data where again like it's secure, but at the same time then it can start manipulating through the data to find where those opportunities might be, right? So yeah, and that's kind of where we're still working with that on a day-to-day basis. Um, so our cold scale engine, so
Excuse
this
me,
is
Chris. Sorry, I was
yeah,
just going to ask, what security vulnerabilities have you experienced so far? If it's something you can share.
we haven't really ran into anything because we've been very like we went into it. We haven't run into anything.
I mean,
Uh,
if it helps, Busol, I was worried about immensely as well, but a lot of
Yeah,
these surface areas are ones you give to employees anyways. So
yeah,
make sure you have the right infrastructure and security in place, do tokens. I mean, you're not giving off like full admin off to every path here.
yeah,
Well, you set
yeah,
these up to make sure that it's just like employees though. And
yeah,
I saw your prior agent, the evaluator ones, those kind of double check. Are you doing what you should be doing? So if
mm,
yeah,
anything, it feels more secure. Hate
yeah,
saying
yeah,
that out loud, but that's what I've been experiencing so far.
yeah. My CTO did
okay,
something
cool.
stupid. It says like installed Codex and was running it on his primary laptop, like and it broke shit. So I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know why he did that, other than yeah. But I mean, like it was also because he was clicking yes on like everything the Codex was saying. Because it can become like very you can get comfortable too easy. So at least for me, like I just made sure that everything is on. It has this like, I mean, I ran through this in the OpenClaw setup, but like it has its own, Apple ID. It has you generate a dummy burner number. You generate a dummy like email account, right? Like just basic things so that it doesn't have any immediate access to any of your personal or like business information. Like we give it endpoint access to our database, like everything's read only, so it cannot manipulate anything in our database, right? So like all these things are like the guardrails that I think you should think about. Just imagine it's like, yeah, like a brand new employee. You don't know, right? Like what they are what they're doing or what they're capable of, or the same risk management that you would do, right? You would give them their own email address that would be blank, right? But you would still have admin access to shut it down or do whatever you need to do. And it's the same thing, right? It's like you wouldn't give them your credit card information, right? So it's like you would probably spin up your own burner number, or like they have you can generate a unique card number, right? Like and give it a budget. I mean, that's what I would do, and that's what we do for when we need to pay for something, right? So just think of it like that.
Okay, cool.
I'm not gonna run into all of these unless you guys have more questions, but like, we have the cold scale engine. So like we have this one running now, like 20 some thousand emails across a day across like 12 Amazon SCS Mailjet domains, right? So I think we've talked about like how to the this is only capable of doing this after you have the infrastructure in place of like running cold email, right? So it's like, you know, remember this, which is like, again, don't hope that an agent's going to solve for all of your things and you just like, hey, I want to send out 50,000 emails a month and it's like it's going to figure it out for you, right? It's not. I think a lot of this is like what's the most useful, and when people ask me how to use it, it's like have a very specific task to start off with and like know the ins and outs and process of that task, and also like what does success look like from the outcome of that task, and what does failure look like? And if you have some understanding of what that is, then it makes sense to have an agent take that over. And then it'll in that learning process, you're going to understand kind of like the little quirks of how to set it up, right? And I think that's to me like the best way to kind of like get your foot wet in that experience, and then like go to the next thing that is like the most mundane, the most process oriented. And then you'll start understanding the nuances and be like, okay, now we can have it start doing like one-on-one personalized emails, like, but before you get there, I would do the stuff that again isn't maybe the most sexy, but like something that is not going to break your business. Um, this is like the kind of like the way that we do it in terms of feedback loop of how things run every single day. So Danny's running the report, shares with us 8 a.m. Pacific, what the previous day's campaigns did. We can have it compute the ROI, but sometimes like again, we're still working on it's getting there. Like certain activities we know directly what the ROI is, and then others we're still trying to quantify. So again, it's just depending, it goes at the speed of what you already have that intelligence on, and then if you can start doing it better and better over time, and you can start giving it the access to it, it can start being more accurate in terms of what it reports also. An example of that is also like, we have periods where the data isn't super clean. And so it's like you have to be conscientious around that too, so that it doesn't skew the data, right? Um, yeah. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that we've run into where it's like you can't count this period because this period is skewed because of this type of reasoning. And we would, for example, like only focus on, looking at the email templates from the past 30 days and, deducing your learnings from that. Um, yeah, because our tracking wasn't great before that. And so like, it's not gonna be accurate. So those are things to think about. Um, we also have it set it up. We also set it up so it's generating its own landing pages. So, um, Body's not only mutating or generating new HTML email templates in both like design and plain text formats, but it's also generating landing pages because it's tracking, it's using the data around opens and clicks to decide which email templates to create, and then it's looking at clicks to then uh, demo applications or new signups as the way to understand which landing pages to create, and finding the right combination between those two to align for optimal conversion percentage. Um, question?
I do, but it's too archaic in the data science on the methodology, so we'll pause. If
Okay.
there's time at the end, I'm just curious about that one because it's into more of that self-learning feedback loops. If you're capturing data around what's changing across these, because what I've noticed with trying to do this with AI is it over indexes too much on the most recent. So
Yeah.
trying to find that right balance of, well, this just worked, but look at the last 10 things that did as well, and can you infer underlying root causes of what's working?
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, right now we're having it. So we have we had a baseline data set, right? So like before we started doing this, we were doing this all manually. And so
Hmm.
we have, before they're doing their or start generating these templates daily autonomously, I was doing that with our team, and we were going through generating email templates daily based on what we were noticing on behavior. But it was more like ad hoc at best. Like we were kind of looking at our Slack channel in terms of like what was performing when people are doing activity, and we're trying to attribute it back to a specific template. And when how we were generating templates at the time was like literally going into Claude, typing in a prompt, and the designs were all over the place. The CTAs were all over the place. But we were trying to figure out what's actually going to work the best. And so it was actually okay that it felt a little bit more chaotic, because we didn't want to be pigeonholed into a specific type of format. And so we tried a lot of different designs from like the dark
Hmm.
AI designs to more of like the light white designs to a lot of colors to then like plain text to hyperlinks to no hyperlinks. Like we play around with a lot of that, and that's like our initial data set that it was using to analyze off of. And then now it's going off of uh, what the weekly performance is, but every now, like basically, like we're still ad hocing ideas too, because it's reading through our. So it's also connected to a Google folder that has me and my CTOs and different departments like Google Meets transcripts. So it can pull from our transcripts daily to give us the bullet points of one, what our meeting should be for the next day, but also it can identify the tasks that we talked about um, to start ingesting, or the data to start looking at to start ingesting, or the ideas, right? And then from there, it'll funnel us up some what that list is to our daily stand-ups, and then it'll ask us which one does it, which what do we want it to execute on. So it's kind of in this way pulling a feedback loop where it's not fully like just reading stuff on its own, but it's plugged into also like what we're talking about internally, and then asking us based on that conversation if it should execute on it or not.
It's so cool. This is one of the areas of AI I'm most excited about when you think about it from a business perspective.
Yeah, I
Is
mean the
that just
fact that
that
it's
loop?
like, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's cool that it's like, I mean, giving us uh yeah, it's like giving us our funnel metrics for the day. Like it's and it's just doing it on its own. Like it's kind of cool.
Yeah, but it keeps the logs. You react to these. You have
Yeah,
that saved, so it's just continuing to get
yeah,
sharper and sharper. And as the
yeah,
models get better,
exactly.
it's only
And
going to go up.
that's the learning curve, right? It's like if you don't do this now, it's still gonna it's gonna take time to figure it out because it's so unique to each business. And this is like again going along my hypothesis, which is like Series A, Series B companies from 3, 4 years ago are cooked because like how hard is it to do all of this now and ingrain it into your day-to-day operations, it's going to be very difficult to get the team-wide buy-in to train it in the way that it needs to be trained to do all of these things, right? Versus like
Mhm.
a company that's starting day one today, and this is all across every single department. Anyways, yeah, this is more so of like retention and fulfillment. This is again just different way, and you guys can look at this in the PDF, but this is just different ways that we're actually using it. We have it like looking for the stuff I already described, but like looking at sellers that are on a that just signed up that are on the 14-day trial, and we know what threshold we're trying to get to, where then we have a high percentage of getting them to buy, a 30% chance of getting them to buy something, and so we're just trying to get them past that threshold, leveraging AI to do that. Uh, Here's an example, right? So like this is a campaign from one that we ran last week on a single day for just one specific vendor. And this vendor like was low on demo applications, low on credits. Got 16 applications generated, only approved one. Again, this is from like last Friday, so this is like low on the. It still requires more time for them to go through the approvals. So this net profit will probably be likely higher, but we gave away 140 for that campaign. If it's already approved one, our profit is 160 already. But already we noticed too that they've asked us for um, this is that same company wanted to see if they can get a discounted version of pricing because they have now all these demos that require credits for them to purchase that our AI identified as an opportunity. So it's just a matter of timing, but they will probably ultimately buy. It's probably like when they're asking for a discount, it's just like the 90% likelihood of just getting them a discount and then they'll purchase. So that will most likely be uh, a much higher ROI at the end of the day. We're talking about like a few $1,000s profit from AI just taking over that campaign. And this is like literally, it's not sending out to thousands. This is like it's a very sub segment of like our active user base, and it's only sending out to trigger specifically this activity for this seller. And like 16 is a lot. It probably only sent it to like 300. But yeah, this is kind of what our swarm looks like. So Danny runs the reports. Bonnie starts doing the buyer side cold outreach, and it runs all day until it can get through 25,000. It's doing it to maintain domain integrity and email integrity. Um, so if I'm showing you like real quick to start, our email health score here is important, right? So we still manage it through, stop it. Hey, we still manage it using stuff like Instantly, but like this is why it's important to still use other tools to make sure that you're not just like delegating to your AI, right? Because then it's going to burn through these things and it's very easy for then again, you need to know the mechanics of everything before you start delegating it off. Otherwise, you don't know like what to manage and what to monitor, right? And that becomes ultimately, I think, a very dangerous situation because then it's like all of a sudden you're running 50,000 emails a month or or whatever, 500 a month, and it's like it's doing it, but you're not getting any results and you're paying the cost of the AI running and also the cost of the infrastructure of it running and then it's just going to spam or it's not delivering and you think it's like a result of the AI or it's hallucinating or whatever it might be and you're misdiagnosing the issue, right? So it still goes back to like really spending the time to understand the infrastructure and framework that you would need to have if you were doing it by yourself or like with a team and separately then having it own it, right? It's all these things kind of combined together that actually makes it work well. Similarly, we have Mary. Again, this is just kind of like the schedule of what our agents are doing. You can kind of look at them. And this is, again, stuff that might be useful for you guys because this is what I had to go through in terms of like understanding how how to do this in the best way possible that just again going through the back and forth of going through and working through it with my agent, right? So it's like how to make the relationship work, the no hallucination mandate. Sooner you can start instituting in this, which is like, look, bake into your bake into your MD files like the fact that I don't want you to hallucinate. I don't want you to, make try to people please, but force physical proof, right? And again, that also goes back to being able to give it access to things so it can provide that proof, right? Versus like it's trying to ascertain or assume uh, through guesstimates of performance, right? It's not its fault if it's just it has no database access, and then it's now you're forcing it to guesstimate performance, right? So you have to be able to set up the infrastructure for it to get the data to then prove that this is actually being executed and this is the actual ROI, this is the actual result, right? Banned vocabulary. This is something that's also good. Is just like don't let it use things like flawless or bulletproof or fully automated or it's 100%. Like these are just things so you don't get you or your team or whoever is interacting or engaging like doesn't translate or identify something and being misinterpreted, right? Um, Process pipeline. Again, have a create an agent that's just like a process documenter. I think that was a good thing, a great learning that I figured out. But like have something that just creates the standard operating procedures, helps you figure out what that workflow needs to be of like, ideally you have some understanding, but like, and so give it as much of that as possible, but then like have it start asking the questions to generate the SOPs and then have a QA for the SOPs. Um, I think, yeah, that's been an awesome workflow for us. And something we only unlocked in like the past couple of weeks, but yeah, and then hard stops, right? So it's like, what can it never do, right? What are those guardrails? And so it's like, can't spend money, can't delete data without human approval. That's I mean, for us at least the basics is we don't give it access to anything else for it to go beyond those guardrails. So, but basic things for you to think about. Um, so controlling token burn, this is more or less like a lot of these SaaS companies are now starting to provide MCP access or API or CLIs uh and that's like for example, we used Instantly or Lemlist or uh even Clay, Apollo. If you think about like again the basics uh of go to market, it's still very much like this audience channel messaging, defining ICP, building a list, writing messaging, running sequences, right? It's now with agents, it can be like from prompt to doing all these things, but you still need to build the framework for that prompt to be able to do all of it. Um, and so you have to understand like the framework for each of those segments, right? And these are like the different tools that you would use for historically to do all these things. So, but now if you start giving your agent like API or MCP access, right, then it can start pulling it from a prompt instead of you having to do it manually uh, as part of that process, right? So, um, something to think about. And also from a token perspective, MCPs, APIs, lower costs. Some things don't give you like those access yet, so you're gonna still have to use like a browser or UI access, and your AI agent will spin up like a Puppeteer to then be able to do that. If it's on a hardware or even like in a VPS setting, it has access to uh, like we have it set up on it has access to like the internet, so it can give it you can give it like login credentials to do stuff. Um, we did do that for a while when we just gave it read-only access to our admin. We gave it like a set of credentials to log into our admin panel for read-only. And that's how it initially started collecting data, but it just started eating up tokens when, yeah, to do that. So that's the most expensive way. But ultimately, if that's the only way, that's one of the ways that you can do it. Uh,
Excuse me, Chris. Now, what's your own experience or your own opinion? What's the ideal sweet spot in the number of agents you can create in order not to have an overkill?
I don't know, man. I think you're gonna. I mean, I think we're gonna. This is why we're gonna have department leaders own pods, and this is the same way I think Meta is starting to do stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the FANG companies is doing it that way, which they just like they're having department leaders own AI agents as like a pod to start doing what we're doing here, essentially. But it's like you need like an like the human orchestrator that understands high level, like what do you need them to do? And I mean, I can only imagine like how far advanced like these larger enterprises are. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, so what I guess like the short answer is, uh, I think it's like you're thinking about like maybe a sweet spot per person, like per like uh owner of the pod, right? So it's like if there's a person managing it, I would think of it as like 5 to 10 agents. But within an organization, you could have hundreds or thousands.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of, is it better to have one agent take on multiple tasks or split task into like little
Yeah, yeah. So
minute
that's, I mean,
details? Yeah.
yeah. So that's, you got to figure that out. But like
Yeah.
how we have it broke up with the Jarvis is our orchestrator. So, and you'll understand the purpose of the orchestrator is just like a department leader, right? Or it's like,
Yeah.
think of it as like a highly qualified executive assistant, right? Like a enterprise level executive assistant. They're
And
basically
he's a human, right? Jarvis is
Jarvis?
human.
No,
Oh, he's not. Okay.
he's an agent.
Mhm.
Okay.
He's our orchestrator agent that spins up and creates virtual employees in the form of agents.
Yeah.
So he created Bonnie, Mary, Sammy, Dan, he spun up these agents, right? And then he's creating and managing their work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I call it he, but like it just it's not, there's no gender, but like yeah. It just makes it easier to memorize. But yeah, there he's spinning up all the agents. Now, I think we'll probably have another five, at least for me and my CTO, and then we have each of our departments has kind of like their own agents also. And
Now, does that
they're
affect the number of tokens you use, or it doesn't make a difference?
it can, but
Mhm.
it's not going to be any different versus having one agent trying to do. I think to me
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like the by having multiple agents handle specialized tasks or specialized uh, pieces of a task, right? For example, Bonnie's sending out cold scale messages, right? It's like mutating the HTML templates is still associating with Danny to get the data. It's still running with Penny and Quinn to go through that process and then having a QA to make sure that that workflow is clean in order for it to then do the executable work of then of scheduling them out throughout the day, right?
Hmm.
So like they're not siloed. They are interacting with one another if you are putting that as part of their operation procedures, right? So it's like if that's what you're asking them to do is coordinate with another agent to get that information, that's what's going to do well. Now, if I had Bonnie trying to do like the data science QA itself, it would probably I wouldn't that I mean it's like imagine like a single employee making all that single
Yeah, you
decision.
wouldn't trust it, right?
Yeah, right. So like to me, it's like if you can break it out where
Yeah.
each agent specialized in a part of that workflow, and then just make sure that if the agent needs to incorporate another agent, that it understands that it needs to as part of that process, right? But that goes back to you mapping out what is the process needs to look like, what's involved in making that work, and then making sure you have broken it up in enough ways for it to be efficient, and you're gonna make a judgment call on that in the very beginning, but like I think you start understanding as you start using it is like, oh, that's too many. Like the reason why we have this many is because when we had Jarvis just doing everything, it's like it just felt like it's not organized. And it started like not being able it started forgetting to do certain things and all this other stuff. And so it's like, yeah. So you start realizing, break it up, make it more manageable. It's if it's more manageable for you to remember and be able to dictate, it's going to make it easier for your orchestrator or for the individual agents to perform better also.
Awesome. Awesome. Sorry, Chris, I just have one more question. Now, do you build the agents around systems? Like say, in my business, these are specific systems we have, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 systems, and then build the agents around those systems and give them specific tasks within each system. or do you just give them specific tasks anyway?
Uh, is there redundancy in across the systems?
That could be. Yeah, that
Uh,
could easily be.
so I would identify an agent to own like I'm thinking of systems as like horizontal, like linear, right? And then you're gonna like from each system, you're kind of like picking there, it can be broken up into sections, right?
Yeah,
And then uh and depending on what system A versus system C versus system F, like it might require four pieces for system A to work. It might require 10 pieces for system C to work. It might require three for system F to work, but four of those pieces are the same has the same function.
yeah, there's interaction. Yeah. Like an example would be customer retention. We have a system, customer retention. Now, that could involve using agents across different, it could involve using different agents. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think to that point, it could be like you can have an agent just performing research. You can have
Yeah.
like, I mean, for example, Danny is doing data science across existing users, like existing buyers. It's doing data against like existing sellers, and it's doing data against um, against like cold our cold users, right? So basically people not in our ecosystem. Uh, so we have Danny doing the analysis part, and then giving that data to one of the agents to then do their work, right?
Yeah.
But does that make sense? It's like,
Yeah.
so to me, it's like understanding within the systems, like, do you need a specific agent to then do the research for customer success versus another agent to do research for, you know, new customers versus like another agent to do research. If it's a very similar, redundant behavior, then I would just have one agent do it for all the systems.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
But it's
Yeah,
like
so I'd
only,
Thank you.
recommend, oh, go ahead, Chris, sorry.
no, go ahead.
When I had the whole 47 agents, perfect prompts, everything over time, I've switched to the SOP type of approach. So that's where we just write out what needs to be done, the order it typically is done. That will give you an idea of some skills to write. So skills are kind of the step-by-step things for agents to follow. And from there, you can ask, Claude or Codex or other what type
Yeah,
of agents would we want to use to now do this skill?
yeah,
And I'm oversimplifying a lot, but why I'm framing it that way, instead of starting with the agents first, don't start with the skill or the SOP. Is there's another dimension to that graph Chris had earlier around the orchestrator and then the generators, and then there's an evaluator framework. That's the high level
yeah,
of multi-agent orchestration is you have to know when to use an out of context call versus an in context. And what that means is right now, if you're in ChatGPT just doing a bunch of prompts and you think you're calling different data scientists, engineers, but you're staying in the same context window, it's going to get polluted. It cheats, it looks at prior information, it gets lazy, it tells you things are done, it doesn't find actual evidence. So if you call using that skill or SOP of, all right, my evaluator, call a sub agent, which means it starts a separate process, only feeds bare minimum info, and then it will go research for you and pull results. So it's complicated, but the main way of saying is like write the SOP out, follow that, and you can then ask it to help set up like what agent should I use here.
Yeah.
I was
yeah,
wondering, I'm down to 10 for my complicated Hermes. Like I even got the like Olympic in a week and a half. Let's see, what's my achievement? I'm at Olympian. 46 out of 60 things unlocked, and I only have 10 profiles. But I have 110 skills that are being used.
Wow.
cool.
Hmm. Thank you.
I don't have ROI
Uh,
numbers, so I don't have revenue yet, but we'll get there.
yeah, that's cool. Good deal. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all I really have to run through. This is from I had Jarvis give me a quote of how it's like working together, and this is what he spun up. But difference between an AI toy and an AI teammate isn't the intelligence of the foundation model. It's the clarity of the boundaries you draw for. Give me a chat interface and I'm a parlor trick. Give me your raw database access, a strict SOP, and the autonomy to act, and I become the engine of your company. I think it's pretty on point. So, any questions?
Have you noticed them developing personalities?
Uh,
I have, and some of mine is like one of mine has some interesting humor. I'm just noticing the more they self-learn, uh, not saying
oh,
sentience in a way, but it's interesting watching it
yeah.
learn.
Not yet. No, not yet. Um, yeah. No, no. I just feel like it's like it's the fact that it's so like I mean the biggest thing for me is like it's stopped hallucin. It's like it's being more direct with me in the past couple of weeks,
Mhm.
and that's like the biggest thing. Like because it was giving me false positives, and that's where like and it was that was the most frustrating thing because I'm like I know this is not real, and I need to figure out how to get it accurate. I think that's the thing. And I think that's also just like the biggest lift for most founders at our stage, like the earlier stages is going to be that. It's like, great, it can do all these things, but again, it has to be a tangible ROI to it all for me. Like it has to move the business needle in a real way. And if you're not giving me real data or like you're giving if it's doing false positives, then this whole thing's a fucking waste,
Mhm.
in my opinion, right? So it's like how do I get past that? And so that's been probably like the biggest win for me in terms of like our exchanges has been very more direct.
I also wanted to ask you, so how much effort do you need to, to set up all of that and also maintain?
Um,
It's
Look,
self-hosted, right?
yeah, I mean, I've been in it now for a month and a half, right? I think the more you spend time on it, like I would say the first, it can be done in a week, like it can be set up in a day, right?
Hmm.
And then after that, it's like learning the nuances of this thing, right? Like I
Yeah.
realized with OpenClaw, we don't update past April 15th because like when we did those updates, it fucking broke shit. So we're sitting on April 15th, like that's the version we're on. Um, and if I was to set it up for somebody else, that's what I would suggest too, because I still
Hmm.
see in the groups that there's still like update issues. I think they're trying to make it more aligned uh, with Codex or OpenAI. So it's like if you're using something else, it's possible that they're not trying to make it as friendly. Um, so that's my thinking. But yeah, we keep it on a certain version for that reason. And so yeah, hopefully if you don't update it, like that saves you another weekend, right? Because then you don't have a break on you. But that might be something that still happens. So that's an example where it's like you might not run into that because I'm telling you to use the April 15 version, but like there still might be the chance that it breaks, and then you have to spend like another like full 1 or 2 days to do it, right? Um, so, but you may not at all. So just keep that in the back of your mind. What I will say though
Hmm.
is like I spend 50% less in front of my computer now than I did before. Like 50% of my time is like voice noting, and I can do it from the gym. I literally just spend like an hour on a bike, and I'm doing all of the yeah prompting to a lot of our marketing uh and our outbound and like yeah just making it better. There's things that it's already managing where we already know that the ROI is there, so I'm already just trying to go deeper on finding things that we can do that will move that revenue needle more, right? But there's things that it is running already, and that to me is like already a win. And so like I just went this whole SOP style kind of set up and having a um uh process like QA like agent that's all been in the past week. And so like I had to play catch up on all the tasks to run through all of that again. So I'm literally voice noting through all that stuff to get it in a place where every single task have like that full funnel ROI uh, um, ability to measure itself for every task, right? Because that's how we're tracking performance. So, it's hard to say. It's just that I would tell you it's like when you figure out that it's actually already paying for itself, right? And
Mm.
some, then it's like then it's the willingness to invest more time just is a no-brainer. And that's where we are now,
Yeah, makes sense.
right? To get it
Uh,
to a place where, yeah, to get to a place where it is like doing that, I will say is like a month.
mm,
Months safely again, like maybe you're smarter than I am and you're more, you're faster. Uh, but for me, that's how long it took. And I think that's probably on average it would take.
got it.
It's like anything else though. Like, I mean, the reason why we did this is because like we were gonna go hire sales reps and we're like, oh man, it's gonna take another like 2 months to like onboard a sales rep and train them properly. And you don't even know like if they're gonna hit the quota. And I'm like, dude, why don't we just get agents to do this? And then same amount of, like same amount of effort of training, you know what I mean? Like, and we had these whole playbooks, and it's like, but why don't we just feed it to agents, see what it can do? And that was like the impetus of really trying this. Uh, and I'm glad we did because it's producing at least now for us. Like it's already converted like new customers for us that like are spending 3 to 5 thousand a month. We've acquired like 3 customers already in the past month that way. So it's like it's already a no-brainer as that we're not even spending the amount of tokens like that on a monthly basis for it to substantiate that what it would have cost us to do the human version.
When these things
Uh,
write down what they learn too, it only gets smarter.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's just where it's just the
yeah,
speed. It's a pain in the ass to get going.
yeah.
I thought it was fun, but I'm very technical, so I can't speak for your experience. But it's just that
And yes, there's a lot of
continuous
times I wanted to
learning.
quit for sure. Like, yeah, but I think like again, when the aha moment clicks of like, oh, it can do some shit, like then it's like for me, there's a few things that I've come across in my span of being in startups and in tech that I'm like, oh shit, okay, this is gonna be the next thing, or like this is gonna be a game changer, right? Like personalization tags in fucking email messaging where it's like subject lines was something I knew 10 years ago, and then 5 years later it's everywhere, right? Like paying for meetings is something we did as an agency 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Now it's everywhere. Voice AI is something I thought like last year super bullish on. It's everywhere. And this is like something I'm just like, it's not going to go away. And it's just going to be something that either you're on one side and you're like fighting it the whole way through, or you're just going to be like, oh, fuck, I need to just learn it. And those that learn it are just going to be like so much more productive. And the most interesting places I think it's going to happen is it's like in the SMB space. Like my brother-in-law runs like a franchise for like kids soccer program, and I'm like telling him how to, what to do, and he ordered a Mac Mini and he's gonna start doing it. I'm like, dude, I'm just so curious. Like you own two of these things, but like how much further ahead are you gonna be than like all these other franchisees? And it's like it's a game changer. Like, it just will be. And I don't know. I mean, you're not going to shortcut the learning curve for yourself. You're not going to shortcut the business learning curve that the agents will need, right? And you're going to still have to figure those things out. And if you don't do it today and you do it 6 months from now, you'll have a 6 months gap from the person that started today. That's my opinion. Like, you know, yeah. Anyways, any other questions?
Yeah. Yeah, replacing those employees in real time.
The what?
Replacing those employees in real time, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the link to Jarvis again?
What's Jarvis is the arbitrary name that I have my agent.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
I have
Elliot, there is
also
an open source agent named Jarvis. People
yeah,
are trying to pitch a different one.
yeah,
I would
Oh, okay.
echo Chris's advice, start with the system instead of trying to go one off all these different tools and stitch together.
yeah, yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? Cool. We ended there. I'll share with you guys
Well,
this
thanks
whole
for
thing.
sharing.
Yeah,
Love it. Love this
hopefully it's
stuff.
helpful.
Thanks so
Uh,
much,
Thanks
Chris.
so much.
yeah, man. Cool. If you guys have specific use cases that you want to like dive into or anything like that, let me know and we can kind of maybe spend a session just doing that for somebody. But yeah, next week we'll go through the milestones. I know a few people are missing today, and then the following week we'll go through the product hunt stuff. And the cool thing is, I'll just share is that's been great is like with this group, it's been an interesting, yeah, experiment. And it led to I'm gonna be doing like this for 20 tomorrow. I'm doing a new accountability group for a 20 companies on this show in the Balkans, and it's so weird. It's so weird, but it's
I
like
saw the teaser.
yeah,
That's
it's interesting.
interesting.
And some of them are, like doing over 1 million in annual revenue already, and they're selling only in the Balkans. But it's just so interesting to me, like the global reach of like what we are doing, like of like the idea of entrepreneurship and the idea of like taking an idea and like building in the product or the service or whatever it is and trying to get customers, just like that framework is global, and the accountability is always an issue. The feeling like overwhelmed, not knowing where to direct energy is always an issue. Um, it varies in degree for different people, but like, yeah. And I'm seeing it in Czech too, and I'm just like, it's so interesting, and I'm just, yeah, started this thing on a whim, and we've been at this thing for, 8 months now, dude. I mean, it's been like, yeah,
Hmm.
quite a while. So I'm glad you guys are sticking around. I'm surprised that you're sticking around and we're still doing this, but it's like, yeah, but it's been very interesting of a learning for me too. So yeah, hopefully you guys are getting as much out of it as I am.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
cool
absolutely.
guys. All right, talk to you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks,
Have a good one.
Chris.
All right, bye-bye.
Cheers.